All right, everybody. Hey, we're just live now. I'm George Affleck. We've got Mike Wilson and Emile Scheffel here. We're just going to have a little chat here while we're waiting for a few people to show up. Make sure that anybody who's wanting to get in here can get in here. And then we'll do a little intro and then we'll take off on our topic today. So I'm George Affleck. I am a former elected politician. For 7 years, I was in government, but behind the scenes, mostly over the last 20 plus years, I've been working with regards to political advertising and marketing and PR. And I'm really proud to be part of this launch of Campaign University. And Mike, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi, Mike Wilson. Great to see you all today. I've been working in or preparing for a campaign or in a campaign or recovering from a campaign for the last 15 years. I was also in the provincial government working in advertising and polling when I was there for a long time in the province of British Columbia. So excited to be seeing you today and sharing everything advertising with you and getting to know the new members of the group.
And Emile, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hey guys, hi everyone. You two are making me feel positively youthful with all your accomplishments. It's a nice feeling I'm not that used to. Hi everybody, my name's Emile. I have had the privilege of working with Mike and George on a number of campaigns, as well as a bunch of other campaigns in my own background, as well as working in the BC government and doing some interesting political adjacent jobs in the private sector. Got some wins, got some losses. We learn more from the defeats than we do from the wins. Really excited to be working with Mike and George on Campaign University to share some of those experiences, help great candidates and great campaign teams do the right things and avoid doing the wrong things as much as possible.
That's right. And I think, so I'll start a bit of an intro here. The Campaign University and this Facebook group, this private Facebook group, is really started because the three of us talked a lot about having been around politics for a long time, especially for myself, when being in office and trying to get people to run for office, it's been really challenging. And I think that the world is changing, politics is changing. I think there's a need for exceptional candidates out there. And after much conversation, we thought, how do we create a platform that really encourages and helps people understand the process? The three of us understand a lot of the process, whether it's from behind the scenes stuff or whether it's for me as an elected person in that process. But also we worked with hundreds and hundreds of candidates over the last several years and not only across North America. And so we want to bring our skill set and provide this platform and this opportunity for those who join this group to be a part of this process. And every couple of weeks, we're going to hold a Facebook Live, but we also have a whole training course that we've set up, the election campaign playbook, which is a paid course. So if you're somebody who's thinking of running, excited about the concept of running, or maybe a bit concerned about not understanding the process, and you need to fast track your learning, then go to the campaignuniversity.com and you can check out the course, or you can DM any of us or send us a note in the messages or whatever. We're happy to have a conversation one-on-one with you about the training that we've set up, along with the training itself, which is all pre-recorded, about 80 hours of training, along with the workbook. It comes with one-on-one meetings with us, group training, group meetings, a whole bunch of other things. But really, the focus for this group is free information. It's really to provide you who join us the opportunity to pick our brains, hear some of the stuff that we know that we have succeeded at over the years, and hopefully help you and get you excited about running for office. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike. Now, our focus today is really on advertising. This is always one of the biggest ones. And the three of us have a lot of experience in the advertising and public relations side. And so we thought this was a good one to start our very first Facebook Live. There are other stuff you'll see already that is in there that Mike and I and Emile have placed on this page, but this is the real first Facebook Live that we're doing and the first training course. So Mike, tell us a bit about what's the focus of our advertising live today?
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, as George mentioned, we cover everything in the course, from preparing for your campaign, polling analysis, preparing yourself, data management, data systems, canvassing, everything you need to know. Obviously, advertising is a huge chunk of what you need to win a campaign, and not just advertising, but controlling your communications and your messaging. So we work in that every day, both in politics and in our day jobs as well. Where we run marketing agencies, and there's a crazy amount of disruption going on right now in the industry. There was the phase of cord cutting and people moving from television and traditional channels onto digital. But now there's a major disruption going on top of that transition, which continues, where digital is completely changing and transforming, and new channels are coming on, and some allow advertising, some don't, some it's effective on, some not. So we're going to go down through them all today. Feel free to ask questions as we go, and Emile can send those to us, but you can throw them in the comments. You can also ask questions afterwards. And we're gonna go through all the channels today. We could do a full hour on just Facebook and Instagram,
That's
or
right.
TikTok, or just AI, or Reddit, or any of these things. But today is an overview. So I'm sure there's going to be questions, or you're going to be wondering about setting up your campaign. So feel free to just message, or even message in the group, hey, we want to hear more about this. But we will get rolling right now.
So Mike's going to share a screen, and it's a Google Doc. So it's, if you're on our phone, it might be hard to read, but just so you know, this recording will be done afterwards, and we're going to provide a transcription that will be put into the files section of this thing, as well as some notes that will be available to you afterwards. So if you're having trouble reading this, no worries. We'll make sure that a lot of the content that we're talking about today is available after this live.
Yeah, and we're trying to make the font as big as we can, and hopefully you can see it, especially if you're on a desktop, and it will all be made available. We're going to march really quickly through the traditional media channels, just assuming there's a better background knowledge that you have of those, and there's not too much flux or new information on those channels. So that's where we're going to start. First, we're going to start with television. The big overarching thing on television is cord cutting is still going on. We're losing 6 million Americans, and a similar percentage in Canada, that are cutting their cable every year. What's interesting that's happening is it still costs you as much as it 10 years ago before all that cord cutting happened. So it's expensive. You can't target the geography you want to with television. It spreads out wide. And the real interesting change is people are still watching 3 hours of television a day, but they're watching Netflix or Hulu or YouTube or other streaming platforms. So it's not like television has gone away, but cable television, where you're able to advertise with a 30-second ad, that has gone away. So there's a huge race for people trying to get eyeballs and advertising into streaming platforms. And so that's one of the problems you have as someone running for office, is you can't advertise on Netflix. You can't advertise into Hulu to everyone watching the free version of Hulu. Same with YouTube. That's the big disruption in television. It's still worth it if you have a big campaign that's statewide or province-wide, or even if you're in a big urban center running municipally, you have to do television, or you want the money to do television, but it's not going to be one of your key channels for targeting locally.
I think it's also important to remember, as you say it's an older skew, older audience, and an older demographics. They vote. So it's important to think about that when you're looking at in your market, looking at television and what reach it has. I think a lot of the stuff we're talking about today will be about data, and this is really key to everything you do in advertising. It's really about tracking the data, understanding your reach and the audience that you need to reach in order for them to vote. And television has the right demographics for the right people who vote, but as Mike said, that it's still dwindling. Those same people who are 45 plus are cutting the cable on television as much as anybody else. So it's a dwindling audience, and it's challenging to replace it, but we'll get into that next and further down as we get into digital.
Crazy number here. If you look 18 to 34-year-olds, 64, so 2/3 of them are watching only on streaming platforms.
Yeah.
So they're not even watching cable. Newspapers, the deterioration is well past what it is on television. You're down to 10% of Americans getting their daily news from newspapers if you're under 64. Daily, like North American wide paper circulation is under 24 million. That's crazy. And ad revenue for newspapers is dropping 30% per year and continues to go down. The newspapers are scrambling to get up digital platforms, but they are pretty slow at that and pretty antiquated, to be honest. Even your community papers, which used to be pretty powerful if you're running a local campaign in a smaller city, those are even dwindling, and a lot of them are disappearing. So it's definitely a dying industry.
You really got to
Hey guys, do you want to just, sorry, George, do you want to just talk for a second about the distinction between placing ads on a newspaper's digital presence versus, say, buying Google display ads that then show on news sites, sort of the pros and cons?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's where I was going to go there. There are a lot of community papers and daily papers, and even TV and radio that have fairly robust digital products. And as we get into some of the stuff related to Facebook and Google and the restrictions that they're getting, some of the solutions you might find, certainly at a local level, you can find potentially through digital products, not just in traditional media, but there are a lot of local digital only products out there that can reach a really strong audience. But again, check the data, be skeptical of the data that you get from them. A lot of the traditional media that are trying to go after the digital buys talk in numbers that are focused on that sort of old school reach, whereas the data that you can pull from Facebook and Google is quite different. And know your data, watch what they're selling you, but there are a lot of robust digital products that are outside the big digital products that are worth looking at, especially as things get more and more complicated, as we'll discuss.
Yeah, for sure. The 101 on that is there's programmatic display buying, which is you buy through Google or you buy through another large network and it's going on every website, or you go to your local newspaper and buy directly from them, almost like you would have bought an old print ad. Now, the programmatic buy is going to be way cheaper, have way further reach, but there's advantages to that niche buy on a local newspaper property if you really want to try and get targeted there, but it's going to cost you more. And quite frankly, they're not great at their jobs yet compared to the big tech giants.
Well, and some of the stuff they throw in, by the way, newspapers, for example, will throw in, they'll print a cover, traditional stuff, and they'll print a bunch of products for you because they have their presses. They'll throw in all these things. So it's worth talking to them. You never know what you'll get if you combine some of the print and the digital. And don't forget that there's editorial content that you can get that's important for you from a PR side.
Very important. In today's world, the real advantage of a newspaper is getting an article, either paying for it yourself or placing it yourself, and then just promoting that on YouTube, Google, Instagram, TikTok, and all your other channels. So you're basically just giving yourself some cover, some content that has some legitimacy, and then
credibility.
And credibility, and then you're using your own channels. And the funny thing is you can even pay for that credibility now. Most of the paper will let you pay for an op-ed or a sponsored piece that really doesn't even barely says sponsored content on it. It's a little type in the bottom. And the public.
So guys, so sorry, Mike, just wanted to, on that note, throw in a quick question from the comments. Great point here. So many different platforms for advertising and marketing. How do they compare over the lifespan of a campaign? So you want to start out raising profile, at the end, you want to get out your vote. How do the platforms compare over that span of the campaign? And just maybe weave that question into your comments as we go here.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that, especially as we get in. We're going faster the traditional channels, but especially when we get into the digital content, that'll be hugely important to talk about. The out of home is your bus advertising, your transit advertising, your billboards. This surprisingly is quite a growing industry nowadays. When we lost television advertising, which was a captive audience that had to watch your 30-second ad, and then we switched to the digital, which is where most of the dollars are going now, and that's where you find the people, but they have a really quick ability to shut you off or scroll past or not like your ad. It's definitely not a captive audience on digital advertising. So out of home had a little bit of a resurgence. It's one of the few places where you can actually get someone standing there that has to look at your ad. The spend's been increasing by 20%. In the last little while. You're seeing a lot of it on transit and billboards. It's actually, the industry is doing quite well. And all your big Fortune 500, all your big tech companies, this is actually where they put a ton of their money into out-of-home advertising. I think Apple is the biggest out-of-home advertiser now. So it is if you're in a local campaign, and you have the budget for it, it is a great way to augment. You almost have to do it to augment all the digital and make sure you have something tangible that people can see that you're running too. One thing I will mention is just lawn signs, right? If you're in a municipal campaign or you're in a campaign, a big provincial or federal or state campaign that has a lot of lawn signs going on, that can also work as your out-of-home advertising. So you're going to have to trade that off, the cost of the out-of-home, versus if you can have a really great lawn sign game and I would suggest also being really creative in your lawn signs, putting messaging on them, trying some bigger sizes. That's where you're almost getting free out-of-home advertising if you can get it in the right locations.
The thing with out-of-home, outdoor, this big giant ones, you think about location, of course, It's an audience, repeat audience. Mike, we talk about this all the time with our clients that we work with. Traditional media, it used to be like 7 to 12 times you could get something, go into somebody's brain. Whereas digital, we look at sometimes we talk about with our clients 30 to 40 times before they to see an ad before it gets into their brain. So when you look at out of home, where you might have the same 5,000 people driving by that sign every day, if those 5,000 people are driving into the neighborhood that you know that you need to win, that's a very valuable audience to reach. And if they see your face and your message every day, 5,000, those same 5,000 people, and that call to action is clear, and they know they need to get out and vote or whatever for you, it can be really effective. But yeah, free versions of that, of course, is get out there and hammer those signs into the ground and get all that stuff you can, because that's out of home. That's outdoor advertising.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. The prices are going up. It's become a resurgent industry. The other one, before we get into the digital, the last one is mail. Similar to out of home, a bit of a resurgence here. It's one of the few places where you can actually make sure your content tangibly got into someone's hand. This is a crazy stat. 41% of Gen Z actually checks their mailbox every day. Why they're checking it, I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
I don't know who's sending them letters, but they're checking it. So if you have the budget, the great thing about mail is it's a traditional channel that you can actually target into postal code or into very specific, even specific household if you have the money, and actually get your message right into someone's hand. Baby boomers still prefer getting mail over any other form of outreach. Mail, I think, in politics will never die. There's US elections that are just mail wars, complete mail wars. And the beauty of it is just having someone have that on their kitchen table, taking the time to read through all your messaging.
When I first ran, I did a direct mail piece, and I did various neighborhoods, but I did one literally within a 3-kilometer radius of where I lived. And the mail was, I live here, I'm your neighbor, vote for me. And that's a really powerful message, because I think a lot of people will go, oh, he's in my neighborhood, but he's not some guy who's been parachuted in or that kind of thing. A very effective message. I think when people are considering their vote, they're thinking, I want to be able to reach my elected person, whatever level of government it might be. So if they know that you're in the neighborhood, that's an enticing thing. And so direct mail works really effectively for that.
I remember a great story we had with Don Miller, my former boss and mentor, who was a great political messaging and strategist. And we had a Montana state Senate race, and the opponent was like a block out of the district where he actually lived. And he was a rich guy. It was a very blue collar district. So Don had written a mail piece that said, out of district, out of touch. And it was hugely powerful.
The exact opposite approach. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
All right, so let's dig into probably what a lot of you are interested in, the digital channels, where they are today. And we're going to start with Facebook, Meta, Facebook, Instagram. If you combine Facebook and Instagram, you're well over 85% of Americans are on it daily. And in Canada, that's over 90%. If you're talking about the channel that everybody's on, it's the combination of Facebook and Instagram or Meta. But Facebook itself is 75% of people are using it. So the daily users are over 67% of people are using it daily. So not only is it well used, but it's also frequently used, which makes it a great advertising platform. Sorry, go ahead, George.
Yeah, no, there's no other medium that I can think of ever in the history of medium. Some community papers might have had a 75% reach back in the day in their height of success. But when you're talking about reaching 75% of an audience, that is unprecedented. It's unbelievable. And so when you say, oh, Facebook, meh, Meta, no, these numbers are real, and people are on Facebook and Instagram all the time. And it's really important to remember that. But I think Mike's going to get into some of the challenges that you also face with this platform.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to see the resurgence, right? So for me, I was in a large government with a large budget when 80% of your money would go to TV and 20% to digital. By the time I was out of there, it was 80% digital, 20% TV. Now you're way further down. You're at 90% digital, 10% TV, and a lot of that's going to Facebook. But since 2017. When I've been heavy digital in all my clients and all my campaigns and all my work with great results, there's probably been 4 or 5 waves of, oh, Facebook's dying, the users are leaving, no one's actually on it, no one's doing the ads. And every time they just seem to resurge. The latest resurgence if you remember about a year ago, the stocks were dropping. There was a lot of political interference news, and it was just a really bad time for them coming off the last U.S. presidential election. But there has been this massive resurgence back onto the platform as an e-commerce platform, as a place where people like we are today are sharing information and sharing lives. It's crushed Craigslist and Kijiji and everything else as a marketing or a buying and selling platform. They continue to be super resilient, and the eyeballs continue to be on them. There's a skews a little bit older, Facebook, and a little bit younger, Instagram, but we've also aged into Facebook. So 62% of people 65 plus are using it. Now, the downside for political advertising, there's a bunch of downsides that are coming along recently. The first one I would say is they are much more conscious of serving you. They're so desperate to keep the eyeballs. They're way more, the algorithms are way more conscious of serving you only what you agree with. So if you now are a political advertiser on, let's say, the right or center right of the spectrum, and you're trying to reach swing voters that are a little bit more left or on the left and bring them into your tent or persuade them or even try and get them to not get out and vote, it's really hard to break through that algorithm on Facebook, because Meta is doing everything it can not to show those people content that they don't like or may not agree with at the first time, even if it's a great political ad or a great negative ad that they would watch and it would persuade them. So you really have to use the algorithms and use your media buying to strategically break out of that kind of echo chamber that's so easily created, where Facebook just becomes a bunch of people that agree with each other on everything, yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Whereas for politics, that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to get reach, you're trying to get breadth, you're trying to change people's minds. And so everything on the algorithm is working against that. The other thing is just it's really easy for people to scroll past ads or ignore ads, or like George mentioned off the top, that TV ad that took you 7 views, that might take you 40 views on Facebook to actually make it through. So everyone starts, they run an ad, they see their frequencies at 3 or 4 to their target audience, and they're feeling good about themselves. But then the numbers didn't move in the polling, and the numbers didn't move on that issue. You need to really lean in on Facebook and Instagram like never before. And I would also say one thing that I've seen in recent campaigns, on its own, it's not enough. You need to augment with YouTube. You need to augment with out of home. You preferably augment with radio and television if you can, if your budget allows. But just thinking, oh, I'm going to own Facebook and Instagram is not going to be enough. Despite all these great numbers and all the eyeballs on there, you're going to have to do more than that.
The other challenge, we can't get, because we don't have time today to get into the real creative side of this, and we'll have a whole separate day on that where we can talk about creative, because that Mike touched on a little bit on messaging, but that's a whole other thing. But when you look at Facebook and Instagram, you look at just all the different ways of using it. I mean, there's boosting your posts, there's the video ads, there's multiple ways you can interrupt the patterns of people's behavior while they're on there, and you have to use all of them, and that's challenging. The volume of creative and content that you have to do in order for it to be effective on Facebook and Instagram is significant, sometimes up to 2 or 3 posts a day, plus your ads, plus a video ad, plus, and then you got to monitor it, and then you boost the ones that are working, and then you turn those ones into ads. For us, when we're working on our clients' work, we're monitoring every day, turning things on and off, pushing things up. So while it is a great platform and it's got the reach, it really is, you really have to get on there and use all the tools that it has, and then let Facebook do the work on reaching the audience. You need to reach the creative and the way you post the information or put in the information. Facebook will then deliver it to the audiences depending on what your message is.
And one thing that I would say it does work really well for is distributing news or distributing the content that you developed, like we played for. So we said 90% of people are on it. The beauty of Facebook is over half the population is using that as their primary news source. So if you, let's say, planted an article in your local newspaper about an issue that you're running on that you really care about, the real power is taking the link to that article in that newspaper, putting it on Facebook and Instagram, and pushing that out as an ad, because people, when they get that, they think, oh, I'm reading a news story. They don't even realize that it's coming from you. It's on your page. It's an ad that you served it to them. So you're taking that news story, you're giving the money to Meta to distribute it, but your news is now getting in people's hands. So it's completely flipped upside down to the industry. And as George mentioned, that's a way of getting, so people love reading news on Facebook. So instead of you trying to make an ad that looked like your old TV ad that people are just going to scroll fast, oh, here's another political ad, get it out of my face. Oh, they would think, oh, here's a news story. This looks really interesting. What a great headline. They will read that. Or if they see you do a live video, or it comes in as a reel, or something that they're used to, how they interact with their friends on the platform, that has a lot of power still. One thing that happened though is the reels had such a power, and they do have a power if you have the following and put them out, but you're actually not allowed to advertise a political reel on Facebook or Instagram. That's how much they care about the real environment, where so many people are spending hours a day scrolling through now. They care so much about keeping that pure that they actually don't allow political ads. So you have to be really crafty how to get into reels, using influencers, doing an ad that's about you, but not about your issues. Sometimes you can sneak that by the AI masters that are keeping out the political ad.
I think that's a good point, Mike, because an organic reach is terrible generally on any social platform, and it's intentional. If you have a Facebook page and you post something on there, you're lucky if you reach 1% of your followers that follow you on your page. So that's why boosting stuff. But as Mike said, think of yourself as a brand. If you're a candidate running, it's really about, you are a brand in itself, and anything you do to get your exposure. So you have this opportunity on Facebook to just show your personality and show who you are, and don't even talk about politics. You could be walking down the street and just pointing out things and doing a video, and it's just those kinds of things. But then they have to be boosted or pushed out. But you're not talking about politics. So it's these kinds of approaches, because you have this basically a television station if you want. It's called Meta, and you can use it. And just like we'll talk about for YouTube, same thing. It's really about putting a ton of different content out there that may or may not necessarily be about advertising, but it is about you. Because I think people at the end of the day, when they're voting, they think about the person, but they also think about the party. But if they don't like the person, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah, and probably like I said at the top, we could spend an hour just on Facebook. But one thing we should say is also the different platforms on Facebook are really important to understand, especially as it relates to advertising. So you have basically three main channels. You have personal profiles, which are where you interact with your friends. Those you cannot advertise on, but they're really quick to pick up friends. Then you have pages, which you're going to have to do a page if you want to advertise, because only from pages can you advertise from. But pages, because they want you to spend money on advertising, if you just post something on your page, nobody's going to see it. And you actually have to advertise. So as a candidate, you actually need a profile that's very active, but also you need a page where you can push out ads from. And don't think that building your page is anything more than building your television station, because you're not actually going to reach those people. And then there's groups like we have, which are actually, spreading like wildfire on every subject, from dog training to bird watching and everything else in between. If you're like me and you live in an urban center, there's a lot of crime watch. It's quite exciting. But those have a lot of power too to manage a campaign. So there's a personal profile, which you're interacting with your friends. There's a page where you want to amplify your message, but don't worry too much about followers on that page, because it's really just your vehicle for getting out your ads. And then there's groups which you can effectively use in campaigns. It's super complicated, but basically they're changing. They're trying to just keep people on the platform. So that's made it really challenging for politicians to use the platform in the best way, because it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
Switching to Instagram, 70% of Instagram users are under 34. 71% of Instagram content is just photos and people that like it. Almost half of American adults are on Instagram. So if you add this to Facebook, you're at 90% of total people. Instagram, funny, has crazy conversion rates. If you're a brand product and you're trying to sell jeans or something like that, it's amazing. An ad there on Instagram is super powerful in getting people to go and look at your jeans and buy your jeans. So it works the same way in politics. If you sell a very specific issue on Instagram, people will come and read more about it. It's a really captive audience. It's a really visual audience. The beauty of Instagram is your ads that you put on Facebook, you can put them out on Instagram. So you're getting a 2-for-1 deal. and it's
Mhm.
giving, and Facebook will actually optimize. I strongly suggest though, having an Instagram only strategy rather
Mhm.
than just letting Facebook do it for you. So you're going to want to create Instagram ready content, really good reels, really good shorts, really beautiful photos that you advertise only on Instagram. It's going to be way better than trying to just do a Facebook ad,
Yeah.
let it optimize out over the other two channels, because people really use the channels differently.
And this number's changing fast, though, Mike. This is fairly recent stats, but I know that Instagram is pushing video hard. TikTok's eating at their lunch, so they're pushing hardcore on video. And so when you think of Instagram, I think both photos and video a lot. It's really important to get video done on the vertical video on Instagram.
Yeah, and like we said, you cannot though turn that vertical video into a political ad. So you have to be really smart about how you use it.
Yep.
We've found a ton of workarounds. You could do a video ad about your neighborhood, a video ad about who you are, showing your family. There's a lot of ways that you could actually do an ad that is not a political ad, like they would call it, and get it out there. But people are sitting there watching their TikToks and watching their reels, and Facebook and Instagram have totally realized that's where things are. You cannot do well in an election without a real game or a TikTok game anymore. And as we'll actually switch to TikTok in a second, but one of the things you're going to have to do, because TikTok does not allow political ads, is you're going to have to find influencers and have a whole strategy and build it out. The other thing I will say about Instagram, if you're running an election 24 months or in the US cycle 2 years from now, you got to start putting your content out now, because there's no way to build your following like you can on Facebook on a page, buying followers and getting stuff out quickly. On Instagram, you got to do the work of organic content and organic reach. And that means starting early, because there's nothing worse than walking into an election with an Instagram account with 20 of your friends on it and then trying to blow up and have some reach into your local riding or district.
And I think it's important to not overthink it on a lot of this content that you have to create. Keep it casual, be yourself. It's painful at first, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. Of course, we're not even getting into AI and how that can really help you as far as putting editorial calendars together and all that kind of stuff, because we're focusing on advertising today. But the organic and the advertising world is certainly on LinkedIn, or sorry, on Facebook and Instagram, are bleed together a little bit, and just start putting content out the same way you would on your personal page. A lot of people actually aren't posting as much on their personal pages anymore. Maybe just because we're tired of it. I don't know, but it's the kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff you need to do. Hey, I'm just going to ice cream with my kids, that kind of stuff. That just put that on your page and on your Instagram, and then potentially you boost it or push it out as an ad later.
Yeah, these eyeballs, George and I were talking before, just the disruptions in the news. So the modern digital newsmakers, you're not the big old guys, the big papers, but the new industry entrants, they're buying Instagram followers, buying Facebook followers, buying TikTok influencers, and then selling those eyeballs.
Yeah,
The way the industry,
exactly. When you do a digital buy with a local digital media outlet, they'll offer you their website, their email list, their Facebook followers, their TikTok followers, they put a whole package together generally. So if you're going to a non-Facebook organization, they usually have Facebook as part of their package. And so you can get into Facebook through these other mediums because they have these massive followings, hundreds of thousands of followers sometimes in their groups or their pages. And that's can be really impactful.
yeah, it's crazy. Most of our world today is getting memes and funny TikToks and nice pictures of your local region. That's where the eyeballs are. So people are selling those eyeballs now. Those really have become the new newspapers, even though they have nothing to do with news. We'll touch on LinkedIn really quickly. One thing is, this is one of the channels that does not allow political advertising. They've been really strict on what they do and they do not allow. However, it's great for putting out content and getting in touch with your colleagues, fundraising, getting people out to an event. A lot of really close, it's a much more closed environment. Usually you have colleagues on there, people that have the same issues that you have. Not a lot of people on it daily, not a lot of people on it in general, 200 million US users. There is a great engagement on there. But on a daily level, it's not great.
No,
so
yeah.
A lot of people have an account, but they don't go check it every day.
Yeah, the other thing with LinkedIn, it shows up high on search. When you're doing a Google search, your LinkedIn profile will rank quite high quite often if somebody types in your name. Certainly from an organic point of view, make sure your LinkedIn profile is properly optimized, written properly, you got great pictures on there. You're putting content on there because people will go, if they're just researching you, to find out who you are. And if you don't have a Wikipedia page, generally, if it's your first time running, you won't have a Wikipedia page. Once you get into office, a Wikipedia page might show up, and that ranks quite high too. But for search, it's a very effective place. And so make sure your LinkedIn page is optimized organically and has great stuff on there, and your profile is properly written.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say too, if you're in a primary or a leadership race, it can be a great effective tool at organizing, getting people on there, reaching out to people. Pinterest will just put on really quickly, just because it's a great ad platform. It has almost, the women users are 90 million US users, 70% women. It lets you put great ads out there. And we like to talk about it, even though it's a smaller channel, just because it's been effective as an advertising tool. The women voters tend to be the swing voters. So by a large proportion, the males have their minds made up, primarily going into election. They vote this way, they always have. Whereas the women are proportionately a much bigger swing voting group. So something like Pinterest can be a great strategy for you. All right.
Very cheap too. Very cheap too.
Yeah, very cheap. So TikTok, the great disruptor of this all that everybody's chasing. Some interesting stats. It's the fastest growing platform. It grows 10% year over year. Over 2/3 of all US teenagers are on TikTok, and it is addictive, super addictive. So it's the most addictive. As much as you think Facebook and Instagram might be addictive, the data shows TikTok is incredibly addictive. So it leads all social platforms, including YouTube and Google, in frequency of use. So once someone's hooked, they're hooked. It's almost like a drug. And most people are using it for fun or entertaining content. So there are some kind of commentators, Ben Shapiro types, that have done well on TikTok. And so there's a little bit more of that going on, but most people are looking for fun or entertaining content. I would say, because you cannot advertise on it, but so many people are on it and it's growing more and more. Plus you can put your TikToks on Instagram and advertise them. You can put them on Facebook and advertise them if they're not political. So I would strongly suggest you have an organic TikTok strategy, that you're either putting out your own thoughtful content and slowly just putting stuff out, or you have a couple friends or people that work on your campaign or work for you that have channels and have a following, and you're paying them to get your message out. You need some sort of creative strategy to get around the advertising rules and make sure you have some eyeballs on TikTok that you can get your message to. So at least you have a platform where they can get out virally during a campaign.
TikTok, I would say, is the hardest, most complicated one to post on compared to all the other ones. And it's aging up big time. I think those numbers, I would rank, say 35 plus is quickly becoming a larger audience potentially on TikTok. But as you all know, and Mike's going to get into some of the negatives, it's being banned. There's in the States especially, there's lots of challenges to it, and it becomes complicated to use. But you definitely should be on there in some capacity. Even if you just create about 40 videos, that's a good number to think about, and just get them on there, and then they get into some sort of rotation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Some countries like Singapore, I think, they saw such a deterioration in the academics of the youth that they've banned TikTok for that reason. Whereas here in North America, it's more about Chinese spying and Chinese data. So you're at risk. You never know tomorrow if your account's going to be shut down. But regardless, there's so many users on it as we speak that you can't just ignore it and hope.
Exactly. And it's the #2 search engine behind Google. People search on there for whatever. So they might search your name on there and find out who you are. And so think about that too, because people are searching for restaurants and for this and for that. So if you have issues or stuff that you want to talk about and you want your profile to be raised, people do search on TikTok. It's an important aspect of social media that you have to also consider. And Instagram is certainly growing this area and trying to improve the search side, where you search for things, because that's where the value is. And that's how that's from an ad platform, it's becoming much more of a search engine than just a passive scroll kind of structure.
Yeah, moving along, we got just a couple more platforms left, and then we'll talk about how to manage it throughout your campaign. So Twitter, the reality is only a quarter of people are on Twitter. How many of those are actually robots? Only Elon Musk knows. So
he says none.
Yeah, he says none. But the normal people, regular people, are not on Twitter. Thing is, probably everyone in Campaign U is on Twitter. Every news reporter is on Twitter.
Yep.
Every politician is on Twitter. And so you have to have a Twitter strategy. It's like a place of genesis for news, genesis for content. And that's where people are trolling each other and putting out statements, and news reporters are finding their news. So you can't ignore it. You've got to have a channel. You got to put it out. It's useless for advertising because it's not reaching anyone that doesn't know exactly what they're thinking or what their point of view is, but it is vital for reaching news reporters, reaching influencers, reaching your opponents, reaching your own party. It is a great political vehicle almost in itself.
I'm putting this on the one to watch though, Mike, because I'm looking at this. I'm very bullish on Twitter as certainly as a content place. For me, it's been my most effective tool. And when I was in office and even winning my election and getting, you don't need to send press releases out, because if journalists see something provocative on Twitter that you've said, and it's on an issue of the day, they'll call you. They'll know what you, sometimes I get quoted. My tweets get quoted. They don't even call me. They just cut and paste my tweet. That's golden as a vehicle to push your message out. But as an advertising vehicle, I think it's certainly one to watch, and I'm seeing a lot of interesting stuff going on. So we'll keep you updated on that, because I think things are changing quickly over there on Twitter.
And the interesting, this stat is 80%, even though you have a quarter of the people on it, or 20%, whatever the real number is, 80% of those people are using it as a primary source for news. So that is a huge stat. YouTube is our modern day television. This is where the eyeballs now are that you can actually buy if you take out streaming. And even YouTube has a huge portion of the streaming market. For young people today, this is all the video content they consume. They sit there. So if you have video content and you're doing it on Facebook and Instagram really well, you also have to get it out on YouTube. Beauty of YouTube, you can target your small postal code or your small area. People in elections are almost like, oh, I don't remember where I saw that, but they saw it on YouTube probably, or on Facebook. You can get into the skippable ads. You can get in non-skippable. You get right in the in-stream, right in the middle of people's little short videos where they're trying to figure out how to unplug their toilet. And there your ad comes. It is, a ton of eyeballs are on it. Half the internet users in the US use it daily. People don't realize too, when you're on a news site or you're on just some other site reading about something else, that ad that pops up or that video that pops up, a lot of times that's just a YouTube implant that's embedded in a news article. So you're actually reaching all those articles as well. 40% of people are watching on mobile phones. So it is a hugely important platform and growing. And I find if you really need to break a video through, you need a pretty robust YouTube budget. It's not crazy like a television spend, but if you put enough money into YouTube, eventually you will break through.
I think it's also a great platform for long form stuff. So whether it's you just talking to the camera on a big issue, so editorializing and really just talk for 5 minutes and put that content out there and then push it out, or you can do your own, news style interviews thing where you have maybe a retired reporter or anchor man or something like that, and he interviews you about who you are and documentary style. It's great for that, because that's really, you want to get your story out there, and YouTube is basically a TV channel that you can create the content for and then push it out to the audience that you want to push it out to. So there's the short form stuff that's growing really quickly on YouTube, but that long form content can be very effective. And then there's traditional ads, 15-second, 30-second, 7 seconds. There's all sorts of different ads. Quite often it's about pattern disrupt. So if a YouTube ad pops into your YouTube, whatever you're watching, it's got to make me gonna want to watch it through, and that's tough. But don't ignore the long form opportunity that YouTube offers you.
I'm totally blown away when I look at the data. You have that ad that we all have where it says you can skip in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you have a 10-minute long video on there, 10 to 15% of people watch that whole video, even though they could have skipped out after 5 seconds. It blows me away every time. Even the most boring podcast clip that you stick on there, it's like as soon as people start watching, they're, oh, I want to see more, and then they just never go away. It's this great vehicle to get that out there compared to Facebook, where almost everyone's dropping off so they can scroll to the next thing.
That's right.
So it's a huge power, and the targeting is just amazing. But you can target such clear ways, demographics, regions on YouTube. Same with Google. It's the same targeting platform. So probably for your campaign, Google Display is the biggest kind of programmatic ad platform where you're going to have those little display ads if you're getting those out. It's a bit of a dying industry, the display industry, but it still can be effective for clicks. You're going to want to mix some display in with your Facebook and Instagram, just so you're covering all your bases. But to have a really good click, it's about the same price on Google as it is on the other platforms. For an engaged click is what I would call it, not someone that's just on Facebook filling out your form. So Google search is still effective. It gets really competitive if you're in an election and you're trying to buy the search term election Chicago. If you're running for Chicago mayor, that's going to get really expensive because everyone is. But as the question was asked before, if you start buying search way early, it can be really cheap and can be really effective for you. I just want to touch on Reddit. Much like Twitter, this is a news vehicle. So the people on Reddit hate advertising. They will actually comment back. So I don't actually suggest advertising on Reddit. However, if you want to have a bunch of people seeding stories or seeding issues or seeding stuff about yourself, it's hugely powerful. 80% of people are getting their news on there, even though it's very small percentage that are actually on there. But news reporters are all over Reddit, just like they are all over Twitter. So it's a great place to get your message out. And then finally, WeChat and WhatsApp, depending on if you have other languages where you are, you're going to have to use these channels. If you have any Mandarin speaking population, you're going to have a WeChat strategy. We can get into that. The question was asked at the start just about how to put these things. We actually in the course have a really detailed blocking chart where we look at one budget level, how you would lay it all out. But just speaking at a real high level, I would say you need to be on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok organically, like now, today, and you need to start spending money on Facebook and Instagram well before your campaign. And you need to do that all the way through the end. And then you need your TikTok organic strategy going on all the time. Then you need your out of home, your television, your radio, if you can afford it, as early as you can, like 4 weeks from your election. And then if you need to save money, you could take a rest, but then you need to do it again at the end near to your elections. Those traditional channels, you can do a big burst. You don't need to be on all the time because it would blow your bank account. And then you're going to want your LinkedIn strategy, your Reddit strategy, or Twitter strategy, much more organic to be going on starting now all the way through the end as well. Unfortunately, on most of the digital channels, I would hurry up and start right now because it takes a long time to get good at posting good content, to get good at getting followers, to get good at getting your voice out. And so no time like the present on digital platforms. There's nothing worse, especially in municipal campaigns. I always see people like they start their channel 4 weeks from the election, and then their ads don't get up till 2.5 weeks to the election. And by that time, everyone that's running for council or mayor is advertising, and you're totally lost in the noise. Whereas if you start earlier, you have to spend 1/100th. I'm literally not exaggerating, the money to get your name and your issue out there. So starting early is a game changer on these digital platforms.
And just to give you a sort of a visualization of a blocking chart, it literally is a spreadsheet, and there's each medium in there, and then you have a visual representation of where the stuff is landing. The goal really is to have it full of blocks so that there's no empty holes. And so you could even include your public relations, your whatever, you have your traditional, and you try to find a way so that it's just always happening from the moment you decide you're starting up to election day or past. And it's really then it comes down to budgeting. So you put this blocking chart together, you put your plan together, then you need money. You have to make sure you have the money. So it's always good to think about, okay, so if an election's a year from now, how do I plan a budget for that? What are the regulations related to that? First of all, certainly from year to year, but fundraising is important. And the biggest place to put your money at this stage early on is in your advertising and building your personal brand. It's really so possible to do early on to start building that locally, that personal sort of local celebrity kind of approach where you're putting content out and you're boosting it and you're using advertising so that people start talking about you. That's early on, that's all you need. The sort of people are just talking about you and you're involved. And then you're using organic strategies like Twitter to get journalists calling you and talking to you. Once they'll see you in their feeds as well. They'll see you in their Facebook and their Instagram or whatever, TikTok. And then these journalists will see you on Twitter, and they'll see you saying something provocative potentially. And then they start calling you. And then you start going on traditional media. And now you're building a brand that really becomes something that people start taking seriously. And if you're not even at the stage of where you're running for, you're not even within a political party, the political party will be looking at this stuff too. So if you're an individual thinking, okay, I need to get into the political party, you need to start building your personal brand. You can do that on your own right now through some of the strategies we've talked about. And then the parties will perk up and go, who's this guy? Who's this person? She seems like really out there, like doing some interesting stuff. We should probably talk to her about running for our campaign in XYJ town, state, whatever. And so that's highly effective.
I was gonna make that exact point, George. If you have a primary or a leadership race ahead of you, the more you can build a following that you're walking into that party with, and you're walking in with members, and you're walking in with a constituency, or walking in with an issue that you've already owned, that's just gonna go a long way. I think we had talked about 3 takeaways from this training. And if I have them correct, George and Emile, number 1 would be have a strategy for every channel. Even if Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are going to be your main channels, have a strategy for every channel that at least you're touching on every channel. Yep. Number 2 would be start now, because it takes a long time. You want to get good at it. It takes even longer to get good at it. And so start now, start posting, build your accounts, talk to people about what works for them.
Get comfortable.
And
get comfortable doing it.
The final one, the saddest thing that we all know is the reality. Yeah. Despite all these changes in advertising, you can still outspend your opponent and win an election. That's a universal truth that I don't think will ever change. So you got to think money behind this, and raising money, fundraising, how you're going to have enough money to fund your ad spend on these channels, especially if you want to do television and radio in the traditional route, but even for Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where you're going to have to spend money to even be relevant.
Yeah, and I think, and that's so if you put the plan together, you should have a rough idea then the cost of that plan based on the criteria. So then you know how much to ask for, which makes it budgeting. So if a donor wants to give you money, they're going to say, what's it for? I'm going to be spending $25,000 on advertising over the next 6 months. Oh, okay. I'll see. Then you can have a campaign fundraising team member go out there and find that 25,000 for you, and they know what it's for. In a campaign, we have a whole module in the course on fundraising, and we'll get into that. But it really is about when you go out there asking for donors, they want to know what the money's for. They may believe in you, but they go, what's the money for? And so if you can say, well, I need to spend this money on ads, that's what we're doing, and I need to raise my profile. Okay, let's do it. Let's find the cash.
And the beauty thing is you can actually tell them, if you give me $1,000, I can reach these 50,000 people 4 times. And you can give them the exact data, and then you can show them afterwards that you did that. So it's great. It's a traceable donation. And if you're going well out of your election, usually you're not under the disclosure laws. If you're more than a year out of your election, you can take a nice big check. The legal requirements have not clicked in yet for your jurisdiction, and you can get a real head start on your opponents. So I hope that was helpful. We
got a few minutes left. If we'll just say real quick, if you have any questions right now, we got 2 minutes left before we got to end this, but we'll also feel free to put the questions in the comments, and we'll address them after the fact and respond to you as anybody who has any questions. So if there's any other questions, Emile, did you see anything out there?
Nope, I think you guys just did such a thorough job that nobody was left with any areas of doubt. But as you said, George, leave those questions and comments. We'll get back to you. And if Mike shared some great takeaways, but if somebody's feeling overwhelmed by the volume of information and wants to dig in and build a really granular action plan for how to tackle all these big pieces, what should they do as a closing comment?
All right, everybody, thanks very much for joining us. Again, the campaignuniversity.com is where you can find out more on the course. We'll be doing this every 2 weeks. We'll be letting you know if you have anybody you know who's thinking of running, or if you know somebody's part of a campaign team, please encourage them to join our group. We're going to be constantly putting content on here along with our live every 2 weeks. We'll be emailing great content. This is a really important project for the 3 of us, truly, because we believe it's important to get great people running for office now and in the future. And that's our priority. And I really want to thank you guys, Mike, for leading us here today. Emile, thanks for watching what's going on there. And thank you, everybody who's joined us today and who's watching this perhaps after the fact. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.